Hello and welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everybody. Boring Bogdan here, your not so entertaining host for the next couple of minutes. Thanks for joining in. I hope that you're all doing great. And guys, without anything else to add here, as I'm sure that you all know what to do with those small buttons below this video, let's dive into today's subject, in which I will cover the imports and the exports for fresh apples. I will also show you the trading partners for the largest importers and exporters out there. And I don't know, towards the end of the video, if you are still with me, I will cover two charts that I've compiled with data coming from Fawstat in order to see together the largest apple producers in the world in terms of production. And in some interesting figures regarding harvested area with data covering Italy, Poland, and Turkey. So this will be the agenda for today, guys, if you want. And now let's get back to this wonderful fruit, which, by the way, there are some 7,500 varieties of apples. It seems that they've originated between the Caspian and the Black Seas some 750,000 years ago. According to the Fawstat figures, there are only 81 countries who grow apples on a large scale, at least above 500 hectares. And guys, I will start with the largest exporters for 2021. And we see here that we have some $8 billion worth of exports, with China, Italy, and the United States as the most important ones, which were followed by others like New Zealand, Chile, or Iran, to name just a couple from this top 10 list. And guys, remember, this list is based on the exported value, so we can find some intruders here like the Netherlands, who do a lot of trading, as their harvested area is around 6,000 hectares. And I don't know, unless they are exporting gold-plated apples, I can't explain the $220 million worth of exports. But anyhow, coming back to the table here, we see that the demand for apples picked up. I don't think it reached its peak, especially with the booming demand coming from Bangladesh or Vietnam. So guys, I gave you a tip here. Fresh apple exporters, keep a very close eye at those two countries. While in terms of year-on-year changes, 2021 saw a 4.67% increase relative to 2020, some $357 million in absolute terms, with 4 countries in this top 10 list who registered contractions and 6 who had expansion. The largest absolute change happening here in relation with Italy and Poland, who increased their exports with 85 and $81.4 million respectively. So quite good figures. But if you ask me, I see also that South Africa seems to be on an ascending trend. So also keep an eye on this, especially as a sourcing alternative, of course, for the Northern Hemisphere winter season. Now moving to the import side, guys, we see that here there were some $8.3 billion worth of imports for 2021, with Germany, the Russian Federation, and the United Kingdom as the biggest importers, which were followed by others like, I don't know, India, Egypt, or Thailand, again, to name just a couple. Well, relative to the trend line here, it pretty much mimics the export flow, as for the year-on-year changes, we have a 4.6% expansion. I think that inflation played a big role here. Unfortunately, I don't have the volumes in order to fact-check this, but anyhow, we have just 2 countries in this top 10 list who had contractions, so Germany and the United Kingdom, while the top performer in terms of absolute positive change was India, who imported with some $176 million more than it did in 2020. And guys, With the overall imports and exports being covered, let's take a look at the top 5 from each flow in order to see the trading partners. And I will start with the largest exporter, which is China. And we see here that in terms of trading partners, China's exports are quite regional. It has a competitive advantage being relatively close to this cluster of importing countries. Transit times are much smaller, so again a competitive advantage for China here. And we see that Vietnam was the largest trading partner. It was followed by Thailand, while the Philippines sat on the third spot with some $203.5 million. Relative to the year-on-year changes here, we see a 1.4% contraction with Myanmar and Vietnam contributing a lot for the overall negative performance, even though we see good export figures towards Indonesia and Nepal. So these were China's partners, guys, and now I'll move to Italy's figures, which are in the vicinity of $1 billion, some 9% more than the figures from 2020. And we see here that Germany, Spain, and Egypt were Italy's main export destinations for 2021. But of course, there are other important ones like, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, or Denmark here, to name just a few. And if we look at the trend line, we see that from 2018 the exports had an upward trend, and my guess is that there is still a little bit of room to grow a couple of percentage. While in terms of year-on-year changes, we have almost 9% expansion, some $886 million in absolute terms, with only two countries here who registered the contraction, so Egypt and Germany, while in terms of expansion, Spain and India had the biggest absolute values, both in the range of $25 million. Jumping now, guys, to the third largest exporter of fresh apples in the world, so the United States. And here we see that in 2021, the United States exported some $917 million worth of fresh apples, with Mexico here, Canada, and Taiwan as the main partners. But we have others like, I don't know, the Dominican Republic or Hong Kong, to name just a few from this top 10 list. But let's face it, guys, the other NAFTA 2.0 partners, so Mexico and Canada, make the bulk of the value, which is more than 50% of the overall exports of fresh apples. In terms of year-on-year changes, we have 7.2% expansion in relative terms, translating to some $62 million in absolute ones, with Mexico having the largest absolute positive change of roughly $108 million. And guys, if you're wondering if Mexico is a good destination for your apples, sorry, think again, as this is the fiefdom of US apples, and basically Mexico's single trading partner when it comes to fresh apple importers. On the other side of the spectrum, in 2021, the US exports registered also negative values, unfortunately, some $50 million cumulatively. But as we can see here, they were cancelled by Mexico's strong performance. So these were the trading partners for the United States, and now I will jump to the fourth largest apple exporter, which is New Zealand. We see here some $600 million worth of exports, just 1.4% more than in 2020 in terms of value, which is more or less just inflation, if you ask me, and not actual volume growth. And we see here that China, Vietnam, and Taiwan are the top three partners, which were followed by others like, I don't know, the United States, Thailand, the United Arab Emirates, the latter having imported some $9 million more in 2021, even though we see here a big absolute negative change coming from Germany, who decreased its imports with some $7.5 million, but these were counterbalanced by strong absolute positive numbers coming from China, Taiwan, and India as well, all with figures above the $9 million mark. Jumping now, guys, to the fifth largest exporter, at least in terms of value, we have here Chile, who unfortunately is on a downward trend, at least from 2018 onwards. And for 2021, it managed to export some $589.5 million worth of fresh apples, almost 4% more than in 2020. With Colombia, the United States, and the Netherlands as the main partners, which were followed by others like Ecuador, the United Kingdom, or Peru. Relative to the year-on-year changes here, and again limiting myself to these top 10 partners, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, and Peru had contractions, while on the expansion side we have here good figures coming from India, who in 2021 imported with almost $29 million more than it did in 2020. And guys, with this being also covered, these were the top 5 exporters in terms of value. And now I will move to the import side in order to cover the top 5 importers as well. And the largest one in 2021 at least was Germany, with some $611 million worth of imports, with Italy here, Chile, and France as the main partners, which were followed by the Netherlands, Poland, or Austria, to name just a couple from this top 10 list. In what concerns the year-on-year changes here, in relative terms, we have a contraction of 7.2%, which translates into some $14 million fewer imports. All these to big negative changes coming from Italy, the Netherlands, or New Zealand, who exported less towards Germany, while, I don't know, countries like Poland, Chile, or South Africa managed good export performances, substituting, if you ask me, the other three, and thus gaining some market share in Germany. So this was Germany, and now I'll move to Russia, who is the second largest importer of fresh apples in the world. Here we see that the overall imports in 2021 amounted to some $477 million, with the Republic of Moldova, Serbia, and Turkey as Russia's main partners, followed by others like, I don't know, Azerbaijan, South Africa, or North Macedonia, again to name just a couple from this top 10 list. Relative to the year-on-year changes here, we have an insignificant 0.13% increase, with big positive changes coming from the Republic of Moldova, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. While on the other side of the spectrum, we have big contractions in relation to Serbia, South Africa, and Chile, all with figures above the $10 million mark. And I think that this trend will continue, as the Russian market is a price-sensitive one, if you ask me. So the importers from Russia will have to readjust their supply chains and sourcing strategies towards countries like, I don't know, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Belarus, and not that much on the Republic of Moldova, given the current events. So these were Russia's main partners for 2021, and now let's take a look at the third largest importer. Yes, the third one, which is the United Kingdom, who in 2021 imported almost $421 million worth of fresh apples, some 4.5% less than in 2020. With France here, South Africa, and Italy as the main partners, which were followed by others like Chile, Spain, or Ireland, again to name just a few from this top 10 list. While in terms of year-on-year changes, it was a good year for Italian, South African, and Polish exporters, who increased their exports from the previous year, while the losers, if you want, were the exporters from France, New Zealand, and Germany. These last ones cumulatively exporting with almost $30 million less than in 2020. Moving now, guys, to India, who is the fourth largest importer in the world. Here the imports really took off in 2021, and we see that Turkey entered aggressively on the Indian market as it became the largest partner. It was followed by Chile, and then we have Iran, who also entered aggressively into the Indian market. But we have other big exporters, of course, like, I don't know, Afghanistan, Brazil, or South Africa. And except the United States here, who registered the contraction, the other 9 partners had big absolute positive changes, the largest happening in relation with Chile. But the figures from both Turkey and Iran shouldn't be discarded. And seeing this big change in 2021 relative to 2020, guys, I became intrigued, as I wanted to see if this could be the beginning of a trend or is just a temporary spike. And I don't know, sadly, guys, from the data I have in the first 10 months of 2020, as we can see here, India's imports are under 2021 figures, some $39 million in absolute figures. And I think it all comes down to the month of December of 2022, who is another month in which we see that China is importing a lot. I don't think that the 2022 figures will surpass those from 2021, but I can safely say that India's overall imports for 2022 will be well above the pre-pandemic levels. I don't know, in the range of $330 million. Anyways, moving now to the fifth largest fresh apple importer. We have here Indonesia, and as you can see here, the list of Indonesia's trading partners for fresh apples is quite small, some 3 relevant ones, and we have for 2021 $374 million worth of imports, with China here, the United States, New Zealand, and South Africa as the main ones. But without a doubt, guys, China is the main player here, with some 80% share in Indonesia's overall imports for fresh apples, who grew in respect to 2020 with almost 15% in relative terms and almost $48 million in absolute ones, with only one partner having registered the contraction, so the United States with almost 4%. But on the other side, China expanded its exports towards Indonesia with almost 18%, which translates into some $46 million. And personally, guys, given both the proximity and the price-sensitive Indonesian market, China is going to benefit a lot from this relationship, somehow leaving little room for other fresh apple producers and exporters. And guys, speaking of producers, I thought it will be interesting to let you know who are the main fresh apple producers. Remember, I've told you this at the beginning of the video. And we have here the largest producers according to volume expressed in tons. And I have here the data coming from Fawstat, from which I've selected the top 15 producers. And as you can see here, China is the king of fresh apple production with almost 46 million tons for 2021. Then we have a cluster of 3 countries with a production hovering around 4 million tons each. So Turkey, the United States, and Poland, followed by India, Iran, the Russian Federation, and Italy, all with a production volume around 2 million tons annually, while the rest of them have a production below 2 million tons. So I'm talking here about France, Chile, Brazil, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, South Africa, and Germany. So basically, guys, these were the top 15 countries in terms of production. And now I'll move to my second set of charts, coming again from our friends at Faustat. But this time they are covering the harvested area, so Italy, Poland, and Turkey for the 2011-2021 time frame, and the data for yield for 2021. And I can say that apple growing is very, very important in these three countries, with Italy focusing on premium quality and thus able to charge more, while Polish and Turkish apples are prone to find either an industrial use or, I don't know, to be exported in price-sensitive markets like Romania, Bulgaria, India, Vietnam, or Bangladesh. I've added here also the yield for these three countries, and as you can see here, Italy is having a 50% more yield than the rest. I think that both climate conditions and I don't know, modern harvesting and growing techniques are contributing to this performance at all. So basically, heads down to the Italian apple growers for achieving these results. But guys, this doesn't mean that the rest of them shouldn't be recognized. I think it's just that the Italian exporters and producers, they are marketing their products better, if you ask me. And of course, let's not forget, it also has to do with country branding, if you want, and not necessarily about taste, as I'm sure that if you do a blind taste, no end customer of fresh apples will know the difference. But anyways, guys, this is just me being a little bit naughty. And guys, with this being said, that's all for today about the humble apple. Thanks for watching. I hope you've liked it. Don't forget to hit whatever button you like. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.